So have you ever wondered why these two integral parts, these switchers, play such an important role in technology, especially for us at home? Well, it's quite easy. These switches that you see here at the beginning, basically are here for a reason. That reasoning being to make life a little easier for us when it comes to making certain connections. As I said, basically when these were created, they were to help make things easier for us when it would come to connecting certain devices to our televisions. I mean, who doesn't like the fact that they have to keep switching something out all the time? So when companies like RCA, here, this is an RCA audio video selector, came up with these kind of devices, it was to make things easier. Now, depending on how much you would like to spend, basically you get an average of mostly up to 5 opportunities to switch from one device to another. And the way these things are set up is you have 5 inputs on the back, which would be these 5 here. You have 5 inputs, while the output is the last one. So what you do with the output, your audio video on the output, is you connect it to the back of your television. Whether or not the current crop of TVs have audio video options to them is another story. But once you do that, you connect your audio video devices, or your devices that have that audio video option, to your switcher or your selector device. And what it does is real simple. It allows you to basically switch from one device to the next. So let's say, for example, you have the Xbox 360 or you still have the Wii. And as we know, they both come with audio video options. Well, it's real simple. With both devices connected to something like this, all you'd have to do, for example, is go from, let's say, the Switch, which could be that, or not the Switch, but the Wii U, which could be that, to the Xbox 360, which could be that, and even if you have something like, say, the PlayStation 2, which I still have, boom, you can go to there, and if you have the option, if you will, the option that is, to have a device like this that allows you to connect HDMI devices to audio video, in other words, convert them, then you would have the option to switch to that with this. So basically, when it comes down to it, the audio video selector switchers are to make things a lot easier and less frustrating. But as you saw at the beginning, how does HDMI come into play? Well, I'll show you. HDMI is basically very similar in how it's positioned. Now, some of these do come with an additional little button. That, of course, being, or little option, that, of course, being this, the mini USB. But what does that mean entirely? Well, from what I've been able to find out, especially with that HDMI to AV converter I just showed you, sometimes they help to keep it powered on, although that's not really necessary. These are mostly battery free, and how they're actually workable and how they work is when you connect the devices. It even goes to the audio video cables. Those are basically your plugs. And basically the same way, and in a way, these actually work what I'm trying to say, sorry about that, but what I'm trying to say is these work very similar to the audio video selectors. So, for example, you have, let's see if we can find it here. You find your output. Now your output is what goes to the back of your television, which is back here. It goes to the back of your television, as you can see, right there. Now what that does is it allows you to connect multiple devices. Now in my case though, I have what is known as an audio extractor here. So what does this do? The audio extractor, long story short, allows me to use my home theater system, which is audio only, which only uses these kind of cables for audio, to get the sound out of these by extracting the sound out of the HDMI cables. So the way that works essentially is this. It's a little complicated, so I do apologize. But the way it works is this. If I can find it. So, like I said, a little hard. I don't want to mess anything up. Just trying to, yeah. Well, right here, I think if I follow the line, is the input. Well, I'm trying to find the line here. Hold on. Basically, what we have here is what's known as. So, what we have here, like I said, in the audio video extractor, if I can find it. Okay, so this is the input side. Here is the input. So this part here, is connected to the output right here on the switcher. Now what that means is the output here is connected to the television. I know that sounds kind of strange. But the way it works, basically, long story short, as I'm trying to say, is the output goes to the television, which is an input. I know. I know, kind of crazy, but it's the input, and this goes to the input here, goes to the output of the switcher, and the input part goes the output part here. The output part here goes to the input of the television. Thus, I'm able to use the switch, the HDMI switcher, the way I want. I know it sounds complicated. I do apologize. But as I was trying to say earlier, the way these HDMI switches work are very similar to the audio video selector switchers. Basically, you have everything connected. Like I said, this is connected to this because this is connected to the television. You kind of get the idea. Like I said, this part's connected to here, and then this part's connected to the back here. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying. Basically, it's very similar to the audio video switch. Because all you have to do is right here in the middle is your button. And what this does here is once you press it, it'll go to any which one you want. So right now, the input 1 is the television. Now if I wanted to go to my PlayStation 2 or my PlayStation 4, or in this case my video capture card and whatever system I have connected to it, I switch over to input 2. And then input 3 is my Blu-ray player, or eventually down the line maybe the 4K player. And again, essentially, like I said, it's basically, just like I said with the audio video selector, it's supposed to make life a little easier for you when it comes to switching from device to device. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what if you have multiple devices? Well, I'll tell you that in a moment. Like I said, you're probably wondering, what about other devices? What if you have multiple devices that need to be hooked up? Well, thankfully, there are other options out there. Like I believe I said with the audio video switcher, you can actually buy other audio video selectors or switchers that give you more options than just a 5 selection. Sometimes you can find and buy for decent prices audio video selector switchers that give you up to 10 options, maybe even 6, 8, perhaps even 10 options. In other words, if you have a multitude of audio video devices that you need to hook up, you can get, I think, some of them that allow you to connect up to 10 devices. The same with the HDMIs, but the HDMI switchers, from what I understand, can only go up to about 5 or 6. Because there is one, just to let you know, and you'll probably see a picture of it here, that I'm interested in called the ONN, the ON 4K switcher. Now this 4K HDMI switcher, which of course doesn't just work with HDMI, it works with other devices, other Blu-ray and DVD HDMI devices. But the point being, there are other options out there if you have a multitude of devices. Like for me, hooking up my TV, my PlayStation, or my video capture card, and whatever device is connected to it, as well as my Blu-ray, that's just three-thirds of what I could potentially do with a 5-way HDMI device. With a 5-way, I have a root go and I have a DVD player that I could hook up. Like I said, the video capture card, if nothing screws up on it, is the perfect option just to hook up video game devices to get what you need. Like if you're capturing footage and all that. But in the end, when you look at these devices, they're actually able to do exactly what they're advertised to do. Now, I do recommend, though, that you be careful about some of the devices, because sometimes the devices don't always work the way you would want. A good example I will show you is this. Now, this one in the back is another HDMI device. Now, on the end, on the other side, I don't want to mess anything up here, but basically the button is not working properly. We can zoom in there a little bit. But as you could probably see, again, I'm not sure if you could see that too well. Hopefully it focuses. Come on, focus. Hopefully it focuses a little bit. I do apologize. Come on, I can focus here. Come on. There you go. But the button here, again, I don't know if you could see it really well. But the button, it still kind of works, but it's kind of sunk in just a bit. The button here is kind of sunk in just a bit. So that's the only problem, is the fact that the button is sunk in just a bit. It's not, you know, it still plays and everything, but it kind of sinks in. And that's the one thing you have to be careful with when it comes to these devices, is you got to be very careful, because the buttons on these things can jam in and get stuck, and you have to kind of pry them loose just a little bit to make sure they're working. But anyway, I thought I'd just kind of give you guys a little bit of a short video on what HDMI and what basically switchers, audio, video, and HDMI switchers are, and how basically they work and everything, and how they kind of save you the trouble of always connecting or disconnecting and connecting devices all the time. So that's all I'm going to say. I mean, I'm sure you guys know about this a lot, but I just thought I'd come out here, do a video kind of helping out for those that might be intrigued and looking into that in the future. So that's all I'm going to say, guys. So till next time, God bless, take care, I am out.